Welcome to Warblog. Today we're going to play a completely random game. I don't know how I'm going to do this really, because I choose one of these numbers. So I'm going to choose things. If I sort of choose, I know these are more recent, these are the middle period, these are pretty old. So I'm going to go for this one for some strange reason. Let's see what we've got. I wonder what this one is like. I don't know. I don't know. In this one, the objectives are there. What's the Syrian Arab Army attack from the direction of Khanasir into Russian al-Kabarah against the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham forces at the Abu Al-Duhur pocket? I thought it made a lot more sense at the time. I'm going to play this, or shall I? What's this one like? This one looks more challenging. I feel compelled to play this one. Let me pause while I sign in. I thought I signed in. Of course, when you sign in, it sends you back to the home page. Fortunately, I think I can remember where I was. I'm more inclined to play the other one, but I'm like that. This one seems a more challenging game, and I have to think a bit more. That other one seems a bit more sort of archetypal. So, I think the first thing to do is to really sort of analyse the situation, and that's sort of the challenge really, because that other one, the situation was a little easier to analyse. And I think this one's a bit more challenging, but I sort of feel like doing. I'm not going to play that all the way through, but it's clear we've got some sort of border there. Here. Like that. So presumably this is that pocket that is being alluded to. Now, these are the two frontline areas, there and there, which means that these sorts of areas are holding zones. So what we've got to sort of possibly consider is why the al-Sham, or whatever they are, don't advance on these positions. Now, I think the situation is really sort of, again, quite clear in the sense of that suspension of disbelief with regards to the greater scheme of things that I mentioned in the previous video that I did, where I mentioned, I think it was Timbuktu. Why don't they take Timbuktu? It's empty. Why don't they just move here? Because it's essentially, in these sort of situations, there's probably reasons why they're not advancing. They're generally on the defensive. They could, in theory, sort of advance against these units, but it would take away all their resources from here to sort of maybe defending against this. Maybe they've got their best leaders over here. Maybe they don't have the ability to sort of engage with logistics on too many places. So I don't know, but so essentially what I'm going to do is assume that this is mainly static. Now that's what sort of gets me about this, because to some extent you can sort of say, well, what's the point of having all these other units? Now, with regards to the point of that is that you can play it all the way through after, for example, you take these objectives. You can then just sort of say, okay, we're going to continue and take the rest of all of this. So that does sort of bring it back to the sort of point of, well, what's to stop these units from attacking here or here? So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to play a couple of rounds. I'm going to sort of play devil's advocate, so to speak, and test my own hypotheses. And I'm going to attack in all these other places at the same time. But obviously the Syrian Arab Army go first with Russian air support. So, now again, this is one of those things, and I do like to always point this out for some strange reason, where we could just synthesize this down to one of the smaller maps, instead of one of these big ones, a smaller map, like that, and get rid of all this other stuff. And it's sort of interesting, but that's what we're dealing with at the moment. So we're almost going to say that these are going to remain static there. We don't know what we're going to do with these troops. I might have played this before, I don't know, but these are sort of going to remain static there. These could be deployed either way. Bearing in mind that what I've said there, I think I will reserve the right to reinforce these sorts of areas. But it could be that they choose not to attack down here. Now, if I was taking al-Sham, what is their name? I don't know. I would take these out, because then I could sort of maneuver the front line to something more like that. And then all these units sweep down this way, etc. So these two units seem to be sort of out of a limb, really. But the main bulk of the forces you might have thought would want to be going this way. But I think one of the things that I actually considered fairly recently, actually, was a situation exactly like this, to be quite honest, where you would take some of these units and you could say, okay, because I think the natural thing is to sort of send everyone to an advanced position and just stick everyone in a big line. Sort of like that or like that. And then I was thinking, well, what would be a better strategic sort of venture would be to say, okay, well, we're going to delay here. We know how many turns we want to delay. I'll qualify that in a bit. By pushing these units, for example, into a line. For example, we could say, okay, we're going to form a line like this. For example, like that, for some reason, because we could then delay these units here, move all these units into the position along this line, spread them out, etc., etc., and then by the time the Syrians actually get there, they'd all be entrenched, like these units are here. So you're thinking, because that's what units do, they just dig in as soon as you leave them there for a few turns. And so, in that knowledge, you could actually play like that. I know I tend to play like that for some reason, and I was just thinking about it the other day. I was thinking, well, that's how you would play a sort of strategic game of that nature, giving yourself time to dig in, and then to facilitate that, you actually delay these units, giving you time. Now, you need 7 turns to entrench, but you can do it in 2. You can dig in 2 turns. And so it'd be interesting to see how that would work. I mean, would you be able to delay these units for 9 turns whilst all of these units formed up in line and dug in? And I think to some extent you could do something along those lines, but I think you'd also then have to have a secondary line along here, and then this would also be a delaying action. But the thing is, it's not just about delaying, it's winning by having a superior defensive formation. I mean, if they can attack, if the Syrian army attack and they lose a lot, then that that can change things, so to speak. I don't know why I did that. That was just me doodling. So anyway, I'm going to get onto this bit first, and now I don't really know what I'm going to do here. And as I said, I might dedicate some of these units to this way and or this way, depending on how I feel about these. Because we've got to decide what these are going to do, so we don't know whether they're going to fall back or whether they're going to move forward. But we've got to somehow contest this whole area and take this objective out here. So I think it's going to safe to be said that these units will probably plough through this way, and then we can then fan out and make a choice about which directions they go after the fact. After we've captured that. This is going to be possibly, based on that, these units will probably be able to sort of come up here and put pressure on these two units, and these ones will probably all move in this direction. So I'm going to consider this first. So what we've got here, now we've got an illegal stack. It's because it's an older game, it doesn't matter really, we won't be able to stack up any more than 4 going forward, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 3 armour, 2 motorised and mechanised, 1 rocket, 4 infantry. So the infantry are sort of interesting because they're not really going to be able to get very far. 3 armour there, some artillery and some infantry. Now, that's quite interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not really in range for anything. Irregulars, 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 irregulars and rockets. Air defence and rockets. Now what I'd like to do is to get these rockets first. I mean, I could send a task force this way. Now that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hexes. Now I might be able to do that. It's going to be the same into there, but this would give me, well, I could do both, but this would give me the added benefit of then, if I've got any movement left, which I probably won't, but attacking these, and or at least getting the surround on those. Now the reason I'm just doing this, because I want to take out these rockets, because I think they're going to be a pain, but they probably won't be that detrimental, to be quite honest. But the thing is, they're not in hills, they're not dug in, but they're in a town, so they've got a little bit of a bonus, but they're worth 1 on defence, so they're actually badly positioned, and they probably won't remain badly positioned going forward. At the very least, they'll probably shuffle around into these hills here. Probably won't get everything into the hills, but with the stacking restrictions, might be more inclined to pull them back. But we've got an opportunity to take them out. So I just want to test the movement here with these infantry. 2.1, 0.3. So I can move 2 lots of infantry into there, giving me a leverage on that. Oh, I can't do it. I would have to push these guys out first. So the missing hills. Well, at least it gives me a zone of control there. Okay. 2, again, triple here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 22, surround, so that'd be 3 or 4, possibly 4 or 5 to 1. I'm going to have to do them because they're all going to be zocked, which means they're locked. And then we'll be able to engage in combat later. I don't want to use my artillery yet. A DE. Okay, well that's not too bad because it puts me there. However, he retreated there. Isn't ideal. Okay. See, this is the thing about delaying. It takes time to do these things. It might seem inevitable, but it still takes time. You know, these units have pretty much moved up. We might be stuck with having to sort of deal with this guy. Well, let's just commit him there. We might have good odds just on our own. 6-1 DR. Another DE. Pushing him there. Now he's stuck. This is interesting because you can push him into there. Now he's worth nothing. He's worth 1, but I think they're in hills, aren't they? Nope, they're only open. Let's just go back and have a look at that. What I'm trying to do is decide whether to attack just on his own. So I just don't want to. I don't want overkill on that. So this other one has been hit as well with 3. I'm just going to do him on his own. And try their luck. Could be a 4 or 5 to 1 still. Ah, yes. And I got a good die roll as well. So I routed one of them. Unfortunately, he routed back into the rocket position, but he's fairly tired. That means that this guy now should be able to get into that hex there. And still have a little bit of movement. He couldn't have done that before because of all the presence there. And let's see what we can do against this rocket position in exchange after all of that. Okay. Well, let's just... Oh. before we do that, let's move this artillery further forward. You can't do that, can you? Stacking limits. But we should now be able to at least use the artillery this turn. Okay, 1.25, 0.4, 0.65, so let's go in with the ground assault. Okay. Well, no one can advance, but we can continue an attack into this hex here. Some rockets. No. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, will these rockets reach? Probably not. No, because they've only got 3 range. We can just fire them at them, or move forward. Okay. So we've got an airstrike, but I sort of don't want to use them really. I think it's well worth considering what's been achieved there. We've got an exchange here, which is a slight loss, but everything else is pretty much perfect. Not only that, we seem to have really gouged that little enclave out. I think we've done more, made more progress than I thought. That's a pretty clear colour, is it? You know, we push them back there, which means we should be able to take these hills, but they might move back forward into them, forcing us to do that all over again. Although it would be inevitable, it still bogs the Syrian advance down, giving them time to form a defensive line, if that is the strategy. I'm probably not going to get much further, because it's 23 minutes now. I think I'm going to have to consider this thing here. So, where's the objective? It's there. Al-Mustarinah. So what's it got in there? 4 irregular units and a regular unit there. Got plenty of artillery, and that might be worthwhile just doing right in the first instance. But can we get there with anything mobile? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Possibly, but possibly not. No. Yes, but we can't move. No. I don't really want to move in there. Okay. We might as well see what we can do with the rockets and artillery. I am actually still considering, it'll take me a long time, reducing the effectiveness of artillery against irregulars so that you can pound them with artillery almost continually and nothing will happen, because what they do is they dig in with little tunnels and things, and I'd like to reflect that a little more. I think the depressions 1.9, 2.6, 2.7, 0.65, so it's not really worth attacking with this unit. It might be a 1-to-1. But next turn we should take it. But what I've sort of done is leave them. Let's see what we can do with the air power. .6, 0.7. Okay, so that's that. I think the question now, can we reinforce 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly, but not going through a Zog? Can we push him out of the way? Maybe a 3-to-1. Put him in as well. Okay, so that's going to have pushed him back to there. Sort of defend him really. He's still on his own. It might be worth at least taking this hill out, pushing him back. And certainly at least attacking that. That 3-to-1 might give us an advantage there. And it's changed 2-to-1. That's stupid of me. Could have put both of them in. I thought that would be a 3-to-1. Oh, I know why it wasn't. Because he had a defensive bonus of him. Ah, look at that. You see, that's how these things work. You've got to pay attention. He was in a town, so it wasn't 3-to-1, it was 2-to-1, and obviously it got the wrong dice roll. All I wanted to do was knock him out, and then possibly go up this road with this mechanised unit, either chasing him, or at least hitting these in the back, give me the opportunity maybe to sort of put some pressure on here. I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, he's on the outside, so nothing that can be done there. We can attack into that, but again, he's not in anything, so I'm not going to bother with that. So, we didn't do anything up here either. What can they do? Well, we're not going to get our magic bonus against that, so that's actually quite strong. We want to sort of somehow stop this. They're still quite strong. That's a weak unit, that's a weak unit. There's a weak unit there, but they're all sort of dug in. We've left a couple of these in a sort of weakish position. He's on his own. He's on his own. But where would we want to form a defensive line? Got quite a big reserve there. So they're going to be worth 7. Plus the entrenchment. Double them up. There's some really complex thinking here, and I didn't up to it with regards to sort of where we can optimise the formation of a line. So we can't really even attack this. It's just impenetrable. It looks vulnerable, but and there's this huge gap here. We can somehow knock them out of there. But what I would like to do is use these for some reason. Some purpose. And we've got all of this. And we've got this big stack pushing through here. That's going to be attacked next turn, there's no question of that. Got some rockets there. Rockets here, but they've been hit. I want to sort of leave him to recover, but he could possibly come in here. See, this line here could be part of our defensive line, but they've already got a position in those hills now. Looks a lot less, I don't think of the word, tenable. Tenable, is it? But I mean, it looks pretty hopeless. These and this is ISIS, and this is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. These are nicest units though. I think that's deliberate. So the question is, do I want to push forward into that hill and force him to attack again? So if we move him in as a reinforcement, and this guy, air defense and infantry. See that? What I want to I think the thing to do is really define where this line's going to go and just make a decision on that. And so I think it could be like this, connecting that somehow, and that somehow. Forming a line like that. So we'd always have to remember that, push everything towards that line as much as possible, including pushing things back. And so that would almost mean, somehow, I think, to commit that sort of defence, it would involve pushing these rocket positions back as quickly as possible, because they're valuable. If we can hide them behind something, especially if we can get them this way quickly, we can start hitting these units. Oh, look at all that. I hadn't seen that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 units. and we could fan that out. 13 divided into 3, one down there, one down here, one down here. That's 4, isn't it? Basically, not including the mechanised. But he can get there, can he? Basically. So there's a line forming up along there, with something in there. No, this is motorised though. We could get there. I'd rather leave him there actually. So we get 4 along the road. So once you start thinking about these things, it's quite possible to create a line. Hmm. I'll do that. Set some down this way. Stupid way to do it. I think the interesting thing in this is how it becomes a little clearer in the mind's eye as you go forward. You've now clearly got a sort of a defensive line along there, and it now seems that that was the more natural place to put this line by virtue of how far I can move the troops. And now I've got a serious opportunity to consolidate that line. I've not got a lot left here, but by retreating, possibly attack these units. So we can push units into there. We can use the air defence in there. Leave those to recover. The rockets, as I said, I want to sort of get these out of the way. Let's just fire the rockets on that. Oh, so we're doing some damage against them. And we've got some rockets down here that I'd like to move away. It's better to move them away. Leave him there to contend with that. Protect the rockets. Move. You know what? I'm beginning to suspect that the ISIS player are non-combatants. Yeah, they're non-combatants, look. That's interesting. That is very interesting, because these ISIS units are non-combatants. They're stuck. I wonder how that works. Anyway, what I want to do is somehow block this. I didn't think of that. Gonzalez. I could move to consolidate, push this line forward next turn around that. I'm going to leave it at that because it's 44 minutes. I just wanted to play a random game. I'm going to do a few more random games, mainly because I'm still just tight behind sort of getting more interesting scenarios that are sort of more playable up, you know, at any significant rate. I will be. I've been recently working on the Fin Fin Mu battle, whatever it is, and that's going to be an interesting one. You know, there's things to take a bit of time really. So, but I find these things fascinating really, because you know, regardless of how relevant they are, I think the thing is there's probably more troops on here than there might be. I mean, if you were to start thinking these are even just small groups, it might be even more plausible. But it doesn't matter about that. There's still so much play in them, especially if you consider sort of not sort of just playability, but the fact that you can play this for 2 players. I'm about to do my game introduction, because the last game introduction was, I think, January 2018, so it's over a year ago now. I think it's December 2017 or January 2018, but I'm going to redo it. I'm going to make it a little shorter. Every time I go into YouTube, I get my introduction playing, and it's always at the same place, and it's quite irritating. And then I'm going to try and make it a little shorter and more sort of to the point. But I think one of the things is, there's over 560 games now, and I'm sort of looking at this. So we've got this sort of front line here, haven't we? With a secondary front line. With another secondary front line like this, which could be pushed sort of that way. But what I was trying to say is that this has got fantastic playability for 2-player game. Just in the fact that if you look at it from an abstract level, counter-wise, you could sort of say, well, what could you actually achieve from this? And the thing is, I think one of the things with this is it takes quite a bit of time. I don't think you could play this in a couple of hours. I think it's taking me 47 minutes just to get to sort of the first turn for both players, and that was without me really thinking too heavily. I'm pretty sure that if you were just playing these people on their own, you would only have to think about your own strategy and determining what these people are doing. I was thinking about both, etc. I'm playing on the video, you can narrate it, it's a bit different. I'm pretty sure that if you played this against another player, it'd be quite a compelling game, along with a lot of the other ones. I mean, I think that they're going to lose just because they've got so much hardware. But you could do something like set a time limit on it, by 10 turns, and and I've always said this, and it's a bit odd, really, but you could play. It's the sort of game that you can almost market this in its own right, and you could play it again and again and again. And the thing is, there's nothing special about it. It wasn't a major battle. It was just the situation in the in the Syrian war from that particular time. But the point I'm trying to say, get to in regards to replaying it again and again, is that you can definitely do that. And the point I'm trying to get to is, I used to play certain games multiple times. I used to play a game called House Divided, which is the American Civil War, and it's more complex than this, but again, it's not actually that complex. It's probably got the same number of units in total, probably take the same amount of time. This one might even take longer, but the thing is, it's just one game, and I used to play it again and again. Not day in, day out, but over a period of years, it'd always be, this another game of House Divided, and other games, similar things. One called Robin Hood, and you have to play these little nobles going through Sherwood Forest, and Robin Hood would have to rob them, and the sheriff of Nottingham would sort of protect them, and but these little games you can play again and again. And I think this is sort of one of those things you can say, well, okay, I probably wouldn't say it, but let's play Syriatel again and see whether we can beat you this time, or based on the sort of victory objectives, you might say, see if I can take it past turn 10. I think another aspect of how that would work and be quite compelling is, because I think quite often you get what I call asymmetric gamers, where one person's quite good and the other person's sort of moderate or maybe even bad, and you could play one player on one side and then turn around and play the other player with the other side, and you could actually sort the men from the boys in that sort of respect, because if you could play on both sides and win, that would be something else. But I think it'd be pretty tough to win with all this armour. But the thing is, it'll always be about targeting certain things, and just to sort of maybe highlight that. I don't think we've really got enough in there, but we could sort of attack this armoured unit. You know, they shouldn't really be out there on their own. Let's see what odds we get. It'd probably be a 2-to-1. So that was an exchange. But that armoured unit's been hit. We can even use this 2-to-1 another exchange. The thing is, you can actually start hitting these units, and we've got 6. Can't attack. We can't attack that because it's just too. There's 6, so it's too big. But we can attack that. And I'm a bit low to sort of push forward with that, but it's for a point of order, so to speak, and move in there and attack. One to 2. Yeah. Can't attack that. But the point I'm trying to get to here is whilst you can't really attack the Syrian army. Attack 1-to-1. No, I'm just using it now. There are opportunities where you can see weak points, and there are no weak points of it. There's this one here, which it's got no movements, we can't attack. Oh, it's ISIS, isn't it? The ISIS units can't attack. So we've got a bit of an impasse here, because it's going to be quite difficult to get through these units. So you probably have to, as a Syrian player, especially playing in tone, maintain a line along here that you can't go through. So you'd only be able to sort of push through there, and your line would always be bent around this group of ISIS units. I think it's 52 minutes. Wow, just time flies. And I think there's a definite sort of scope for taking this forward. I'm not going to, but I'm glad I played this one now, actually. I think the whole point is you're just supposed to take that little thing, which we pretty much did, and they obviously reinforced it. And this one is clearly going to take a couple more turns, but that's going to fall. And here I think it's stranger than it appears, but that massive stack of reinforcements, it really gives these units sort of some scope for doing, you know, a whole bunch of things. I mean, we could have taken them all down here and completely obliterated these units. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.